Okay.
Okay, now we're recording. All right, well, good evening, everyone. It is 7:01 p.m. on the 26th, and we will open up the meeting. So the first item of business on our agenda is an administrative item, and we need a motion to approve the minutes from the October 12th Village Board meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
A motion from Ginny. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Lynn seconds. Is there any discussion of those minutes? Okay, all in favor of approving? 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 0. Thank you. Okay, next, we need to approve the agenda for tonight's board meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Okay, I'll take the motion from Ginny. I think she spoke a split second ahead of Warren. Warren, you want a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion of tonight's agenda? All right, all in favor of approving tonight's agenda? Okay, 4, 0, 0. Okay, next up, we have resident remarks. If you would like to make remarks to the board, please use the Zoom raise hand feature, and I'll call you in the order that Zoom sees you raising your hand. If you have remarks, you will have up to 3 minutes to make your remarks. Anyone for resident remarks? Going once? Going twice? Moving on to new business. All right, our only item of new business tonight is donation requests. For those who aren't familiar, in normal years, and we are considering this a normal year, last year was a bit of an anomaly. Oakland Mills accepts requests from nonprofit organizations who operate within the Oakland, at least within the Oakland Mills community, for donations. We ask that they send a donation request along with some information about why they're requesting the donation to the village manager by October 15th of every year. We review the requests as they've come in by October 15th at the first meeting after October 15th, which is tonight, as new business. You know, we might ask Sandy some questions, ask her to get some follow-up on some of these. And then normally what we would do at the next meeting is we would determine whether we are going to make donations and in what amount. Our line item for donations this year is $3,000. Not knowing financially how this year would look, it is a little bit smaller than it's been in previous years. As you've seen, if you've looked at the document, or as you'll see as we go through it tonight, as often happens, the request for donations outpace the budget we've allocated toward donations. In the past, the board has reserved the right and has taken the opportunity to revisit donations later in the year, as the end of the year budget becomes more clear. So some of these organizations obviously are looking for donations to do things now. We can discuss them. We can consider giving them all or some of what they're asking for now, or even tabling it for later, depending on how much of that line item we want to use, or whether we want to expand that line item should the year look better as we go on. So I'm just setting it up with all of that, to kind of tell you how we've operated in the past. We have requests from several organizations that operate, pretty much specifically within the Oakland Mills community. Oakland Mills United, which I think everyone on the board is familiar with because they're also a partner to us. Oakland Mills Online, the Oakland Mills Middle School PTSA, the Stevens Forest Elementary School PTA. Battle of the Books for Stevens Forest. I actually want to say something about that later. And then of course, Grassroots provides services throughout the county. So before I say my piece, I wanted to know if any board members have any questions, any initial reactions, and especially if you have anything that you would like Sandy to follow up on from any of these organizations that she could then bring back to us at the next meeting when we would be able to make some decisions under old business.
So I'm not really familiar with Oakland Mills United. Can you tell me something about them?
How about if I have their executive chairperson tell you something about them, because he's here?
Sure.
All right, Sam, can I put you on the spot since you came to the meeting where we're discussing you?
Sure. And that's why I popped in because I wasn't sure, and I know that you guys have some new members. So hi, my name is Samuel Hahn. I'm over with Oakland Mills United. We are a community organization that seeks to empower the students in schools within the Oakland Mills community through education, empowerment, and demanding real change. We focus on advocacy and also direct support for students through K through 12 and focusing in the Oakland Mills cluster. And so we do a lot of work when it comes to advocacy, and we are also launching our direct programs to help impact the students, which include our student enrichment, which includes our tutoring program, our Road to College program. We're having an event tomorrow night that focuses on that, and then our student leadership.
Okay, how about this? Let's fly.
I was going to try to go to their request since we're at
Why don't you
it.
just go, you had a summary on the second page.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. How can I go quickly?
If you go up to the pages,
I'm not seeing it on my Zoom screen.
Okay, that's enough.
I'll just have to.
I just use page up and page down on my keyboard,
that's what I was gonna say. Page
Oh,
up.
okay.
Yeah.
but it looked like on the second page, you have like summaries of the request, don't you?
I might. I haven't looked at this in a while.
Yeah, there it is, right there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and one thing I'll point out, as often happens with new nonprofits, under the way the tax system works, a nonprofit charitable organization can operate as such before they get their charitable exempt organization determination from the IRS. And what they'll often do when they're looking for donations is they'll find another charitable organization that already is vetted, and that organization will serve as their fiscal sponsor. So what Oakland Mills United is doing is Oakland Mills Online has agreed to be their fiscal sponsor. And I think there was a similar, actually, we didn't do no donations last year, but I know before Oakland Mills Online got their determination letter, I think the Stevens Forest PTA was actually their fiscal sponsor for a little while, so that they could start that initial fundraising to get off the ground. So if you're wondering about that last line about applying for 501c3 and having OMO as the fiscal sponsor, that's because they can legally operate, but they don't have the determination letter yet from the IRS saying, we bless you as a tax exempt organization. And Sandy, the only thing what is this percussionist? And
I know, I think it somehow we lost part of Oakland Mills Middle School.
okay, I thought so. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the Oakland Mills Middle PTSA.
Yeah, for funds for the band department, and it was English language arts department, and they broke it down up here, breakdown for drum
Okay.
pads and one other drum thing, and then yeah. I'll fix that.
Okay.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
I have a question, Jonathan. So you were suggesting that we could commit to a certain amount now and then hold money in reserve and then release it again if it looks like we're in good shape as we go on?
We've done that in the past. I mean, we're not going to commit to anything tonight, but in
Right.
2 weeks under old business, we could commit money then. I've seen this go several ways in the past. Usually what we've done is we have not exhausted the whole line item in early November. We've usually helped out the people we want to help out, but also made sure we left, some money in that line item, for emergencies, things come up. We've had emergency requests come in, things happen, or we've just decided that we want the discretion to give as we please later on in the year. We've sometimes given to people who haven't asked because we want to do that. So we have done that in the past. Another thing we've done in the past is, obviously our fiscal year starts on May 1st. So we're about halfway through. So we have an idea of what the whole year will look like, but we only have half the actual facts. Another thing we've done in the past is as we've gotten closer to the end of the year and we look around and we go, oh, we're having a better year than we forecasted. We've put money into different things. And one of the things we put money into is amending the budget to increase the donation line item. And then we've actually sometimes reached back out to some of these organizations and said, hey, is there something more you need from us? Or we couldn't give you everything we gave you at the beginning of the year. Could you still use a little bit more? So it's entirely at our discretion, because we're the ones with fiduciary responsibility to the association.
But in general, because we have the October 15 deadline for submitting requests, it's not just open requests time all the way till the end of the year.
Right. I mean, so what normally happens is if someone comes in with a request after October 15th, we will share our policy with them. You know, we will say, oh, sorry, you've missed this. However, you know, we'll hold on to this as we look at the end of the year, because this is something we might reconsider, but we can't make any promises that we'll even consider this. If you get something in by October 15th, we will consider it. We will discuss it in these meetings and we will consider it and make a decision. If something comes in October 15th, it may never see the light of day, because if we don't have, if we don't feel we have the funds to do anything about it, or if, you know, quite honestly, if we don't feel it needed to come in as a last minute emergency request, then it may not happen.
Okay, good. In the Oakland Mills online, do you have a sense of whether the $2,000 actually pays for the computer, or is that like a start to purchase the laptop?
I mean, based on what laptops go for, I think it should cover it. Of
Okay.
course, these days with chip shortages and supply chain issues, who
Yeah.
knows? But, you know, under normal circumstances, that should be fine.
Right.
I'm assuming they priced this fairly close to when they submitted the request. So,
Okay, and then with the Stevens Forest PTA, the elementary school PTA, that their whole entire, they're just showing us everything they want to do. And they're asking for the $1,000 as a start on all of that.
right.
Okay, those were all clarification questions.
Okay. Any other questions or things you want Sandy to get clarified? All right, so my one thing was the last thing on there, the Battle of the Books. And I've already talked to Sandy about this. I think before we could give this realistic, something's weird's going on.
I know, I just think it's the way it's coming up on the screen.
Before we can give this realistic consideration, they are, Battle of the Books at Stevens Forest is not its own 501c3. And they kind of alluded to, oh, you know, maybe the PTA will sponsor us, maybe the school itself. I think we need to know who's going to take financial responsibility for that. You know, one of those two entities has to say, yes, we will be responsible for this. We can't just have someone, you know, asking and saying, you know, maybe that one, maybe that one. So I did ask Sandy to go back and see if within 2 weeks they can get more information about, okay, so exactly who is your fiscal sponsor going to be?
Yeah, I had told them that.
Detail.
Right.
Yeah.
Not just sort of an in case of we need the money.
Right.
No, they know that. They just hadn't gotten it to me, and they wanted to make sure we got in their thing.
Yeah.
Also, in the past, haven't we provided funding for that for several years now?
No, that's the books for Bobcats, which I understand they're not doing. That's the one where they buy a book for every student in the school. Battle of the Books is a 5th grade. I think it's 5th grade only. Okay.
Right. I
Okay.
know what it is now that I'm looking at it.
Yeah. And just, you know, I'm not making the pitch for this because actually if it doesn't get a little bit more firmed up, I wouldn't be able to support giving them anything. But just, you know, having been in the school system now for many years, I can tell you that, you know, at a school like Stevens, well, at other schools, they will go on like serious Battle of the Books excursions to learn about the topics they're covering. At Stevens Forest, they go for the free thing. Like I believe one year their excursion was a trip to the kitchen at the other barn, right, Sandy?
Yeah.
So, you know,
Gosh.
And
Yeah.
their fundraising, their biggest thing is when we have our bingo night and we fill up the upstairs and they raffle off baskets of wonderful books and people buy raffle tickets. And so they make a lot of money like that, but then we didn't have that last year. So, they work really hard with what they have, and it's wonderful that the kids at our school want to be part of this great program.
Yeah, it's in most of the Howard County schools, isn't it? Most of the elementary schools.
Yes.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it ends in the spring with a big event, and they actually divide the schools because it's too many kids to have one event. So they usually use like 3 or 4 high school gymnasiums, and they divide the elementary schools up and, have Battle of the Books nights where they have themes and they get, they go into costume and they get quizzed on their books and everything.
So hopefully, there are a few options for, Mark Tolson kind of runs it at Stevens Forest Elementary School, probably with someone else, but they could possibly have the principal use the school's 501(c), the PTA or the Battle of Books organizations. He just has to get that detail.
All right. So other than having Sandy clarify the Battle of the Books, and if it's not clarified in 2 weeks, we do have the option to table it, but it would be helpful. Are there any other questions, or is there anything else that you want Sandy to go back to any of these organizations with as follow-up for our discussion under old business in a couple of weeks? All right, and then we can move on to the old business, featuring Sandy again. So Sandy has come back with follow-up to the questions raised under the new business discussion of potential online voting in Oakland Mills. Sandy, do you want to take it over?
Right. So I went through the questions that were given to me, and here are the answers. So the question was, how does the voter receive verification once the online vote is cast, submitted? And from the company, they said an email confirmation can be sent. We can set it up saying that we want our voters to get an email confirmation sent to you after the vote is submitted. The next question was, can a voter change their vote after it was submitted? And the answer was, once a vote is submitted, it's final. However, if the organization, which would be OMCA, has rules in place to allow a vote to be changed, then the company could set up a system where the voter would contact the company by email and ask that they remove the vote and vote again. And this is interjecting my 2 cents. I think that could start to get complicated. I don't recommend it. I think we shouldn't do anything to interfere with the original vote cast and the integrity of the online vote. We do not return absentee ballots when they're received. So I feel like we should continue that for online voting. That is just my thought process.
We don't have anything in place for in-person voting either, right? If someone dropped their ballot into the box and said, "Oh, I didn't mean to do that,"
No.
too bad, right? They voted.
Or it comes back the next day after, talking it over.
Right. So, once they're in there, we've put them in a big pile, checked it off, and so we haven't. And it can be firmed up actually in our election rules when we have to do them anyway for whatever we go.
General Tso's chicken.
Did villages who offer online
General
voting,
Tso's chicken for dinner.
what's that? Is someone talking?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, never mind, I'll keep going. Did villages who offered online voting see an increase in the number of people who voted? I didn't get statistics, but from the ones who did, the answer was yes. How do we determine when the polls close, the online polls? Oakland Mills picks the date and time in advance of the election. We inform the community, online voting ends this date, this time. We inform the company and put it in all our election correspondence. The company would provide us with a real-time reporting website that shows, this is once online voting ends. They would provide us with a real-time website that shows up to second results. We never know who has voted with the result. We give the clients who need to announce the results right away. So we get something at the end of our election day at 5:30 after we've counted all of the in-person votes and mail-in votes. We will have a tally of the totals from the online vote. However, the actual final document, we wouldn't get till that following Monday or Tuesday. The results of the real-time page would be exactly the same as the final results. And our elections don't end finally on election day anyway. There's always a time for appeals, and then our board ratifies it. What security measures are in place to prevent hacking into the system? All servers are locked down behind a firewall monitored by intrusion detection software. Access into the servers is only granted to a select few users, and that's not at our end at all, through a VPN. The database management system does not accept HTTP traffic directly and is only open through users connected to the VPN through ports protected by the firewall. Jonathan can explain all that. He's not even listening. Anyway,
Thanks.
what?
But basically, it means no schmo just browsing the web is able to get into this thing.
Right, we have a, yeah, so those were the questions that I had. Board, and are there other questions? I'm happy to get anything else answered. You're on, Jonathan, you can go from here.
Well, first of all, Sandy, thank you for getting answers to all the questions that we had last time. Now I want to open it up to the board to see if you have additional questions or comments. Obviously this is would be a change, and it's a major decision. So I don't want us to, feel that we're being rushed into any kind of decision until we're all comfortable with everything. But with that said, we will come to a point as we get toward the end of the calendar year where if we are going to do this, we will have to make the decision to do it because of the planning that will have to go into it on Sandy's end and on the end of the election monitoring committee.
So Jonathan, I have just a quick question, and
Yes.
well, first of all, I think I'm in favor of this because I think it will really increase the number of people we have voting. Whereas, if you can get your information and go to your computer and get it done, I think we'll get much better response from our residents, or more complete response. But I did wonder, are other villages doing this? Do you know? Is this?
Oh, yeah.
They are.
Oh, yeah, we, Harper's Choice, and this is all the villages that if they had elections, they didn't all have elections,
Right.
but they would have done, it would have been River Hill, Town Center, Harper's Choice, I believe Hickory Ridge, Wild Lake, and I believe if Owen Brown had an election. So that's 6 so far. It could have been more. So we're kind of behind the others as far as our board deciding whether or not to. But yeah, they've been very pleased with this company. Some of them have connected with them as far as 3 elections ago.
Oh, really? And it's all the
Yes.
same company. Everybody's using the same
Oh,
company.
yeah, and they're very pleased. And like if I've emailed this company and I didn't even know them, they get back to me like 2 minutes later, kind of like how I get back to everyone.
Right,
Yeah.
good to know.
Sandy,
Yeah.
is this a local company?
I don't know.
Okay. So the one question I have, I like the answer they gave about the security protocols. I mean, this is the same technology that, government agencies are using to keep the right people in and the wrong people out now that everyone is teleworking. So it's proven technology. With that said, could we get some guarantee from the company that the few people who do have access through the VPN are not Oakland Mills or even Columbia Association assessed individuals, so that the people who have access have absolutely no stake in the outcome of the village or CA election?
Sure. I'll get you that answer.
So I think we need security clearances, right?
They probably have it if that's their role there. Oh, he'll
I'm gonna go down every path where someone could raise a question. And like, as I read that, my only question was, oh, all that's nice. Now, who are those few people?
Uh-huh.
If none of those few people care what happens in the village of Oakland Mills, okay, great.
Okay, I'll get you that answer.
Yeah, Jonathan?
Yes, Jenny.
Yeah, they also have the capability of extending an election because in Harper's Choice, this was about a year ago, because they have 2-year terms. They didn't have a sufficient number of voters.
Right.
So they had to extend it. I think 2 weeks beyond the deadline.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all, we're the client, so I guess we set parameters for deadline dates and extension dates. And basically, we should have that all determined before the election, that if we do not have a quorum, this will be the next round of, voting. But that, I have to find out what Harper's Choice did, because if someone already voted, they can't vote again in the second election.
Yeah, how do they do that?
So we would already know that.
Yeah.
Well, it may be, I mean, you find
I have
out.
to get that
It
from
may
Harper's.
it may just be an extension of the voting period.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
So-
was just, it was just the voting period. You'll find that out. It was not,
Yeah.
you can vote again or anything like that. They had those captured or whatever you call it. It was just to try and they had to get more people voting.
I'll make sure I talk to Steve about that. In Harper's.
Okay, any other questions? Bill?
Yes, just comment that I understand the security measures here, et cetera. But as I said before, the Pentagon's been hacked several times. The White House has been hacked. They should have the most secure procedures around, and they've got the money to do it. Systems can be hacked externally, and they can also be hacked internally. So I'm very concerned about any electronics in voting. Paper's much harder to hack. And what's at stake? To me, what's really at stake is CA's open space. Why has there been such interest in getting slates of people into the CA board? If you get a slate in that's favorable to powers that be, CA open space designation can be changed, it can be developed. There's hundreds of millions of dollars in open space that could be gained from developing open space. And elections could be changed. We wouldn't know it. It could be that maybe the next time, if Ginny ran for CA rep in Oakland Mills next time, she gets her normal 450 to 500 votes. Her opponent could get 600. And it could be through hacking, and we would never really know. So my concern is there's a whole lot at stake. The penalty for hacking an HOA election, I think, is minimal, if any. What can be made is hundreds of millions of dollars. And there are powers that be that can go that direction very easily. So I have no real confidence in electronics in voting anywhere at any point in time. I'm solely for paper and hand count in all elections. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Other comments or questions from the board?
There's some hand raised.
It looks like we may have one resident with a question. Normally, we ask you to make comments or raise questions at Speak Out, but since everyone on the board has spoken and we have time in the agenda, go ahead if you can be brief. That's Sky Anderson.
Okay. First of all, I'm on the board of Hickory Ridge, and this was the first year that we used online voting. Harper's Choice used it the previous year. We were terribly impressed. It was very successful. And all the answers that you have gone over today are my understanding as well. We probably had 3 times or 4 times the turnout as we've ever had in the past. Residents had the choice of voting online, they were also mailed a ballot, and they could mail the ballot back in, or they could drop it in a drop box outside the Hawthorne Center, or they could vote on the morning of election. I believe the deadline from IntelliScan was noon on Friday, and election was on Saturday. It could have been 5 o'clock on Friday with the election on Saturday. And I believe that they sent us an email with the addresses who had not voted online. So we could print that out and check that against the mail-in or drop-off ballots, and also check it against the people who showed up Saturday morning to vote. However, I did come across an article, unfortunately written in 2018. I just Googled on online voting. 25 states have some version of online voting, whether it's by email or going into a portal. And that's in higher levels of government than we are. However, in Hickory Ridge, there is now a movement against this because of the possibility of hacking. And I happen to have a background in risk assessment. So you weigh the possible dangers against the probability of hacking occurring. So anyway, I just thought that might help add to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Sandy, if you could get follow up on that question I have, and we can discuss again. Like I said, we don't have to make an immediate decision, but you know, the election committee will need time to work with this vendor, you know, and Sandy, because obviously, you know, the board has to make its decision and step away because we could be in the election. So we, you know, we'll have to hand it over to our volunteers and staff to work with them. And from talking to Sandy, you know, the estimate is that if we're going to do it in the next election, we'd have to come to the decision basically by the end of the calendar year to ensure they have enough time to pull that together.
Right, which would probably be the first meeting in December, since we usually don't meet the second meeting in December.
Well, you just stole part of my board chair remark, Sandy.
Well, I'm still on online voting.
So can I say something? I just, something came up that I
Yes.
thought about. So I'm in favor of anything that would help more of the Oakland Mills personnel participate in our voting. I think that's important. So I am in favor of this, but Bill brings up an interesting point. Is there any way to know or verify that the person that's supposed to have voted actually voted?
Well, they get an individual PIN assigned to their property or their absentee property, and it's on the ballot in their newsletter. So they have access to that PIN. If that PIN is used, then that address would be recorded as voted. There's no other personal identification they enter because we don't have that on anyone.
So the PIN is sent through the mail?
The PIN is in the newsletter. Ken, the PIN is in the newsletter that has the ballot in it. And it's printed on the ballot, which is enclosed in the newsletter and sent to every property and to every absentee owner's house at that address. So they have to get their newsletter, read the instructions, look at the ballot, and go online. And then when they get there, enter that PIN number.
Yeah, and just like a ballot, the ballots all have different numbers.
Right.
They also have a different PIN. Not everybody's getting the same PIN.
Right.
Right.
It's a different number than, yeah.
And I understand that, that's good, but thank you for clarifying that. But I guess the question is, if suppose something really odd happened, say I don't know, like Bill's example, say Ginny she usually gets 400 votes. Suppose she got like 102 votes or something. And she lost election by whatever. I mean, is there a way to verify that someone hacked the pins? I mean, is there a way to verify that that happened? So
I
say
don't-
somebody challenges. it.
I'll say, just to play devil's advocate, to me, it's no different than the mail-in ballots, because we don't know who picked up. I mean, it's a federal offense to take someone's mail, but we don't know who picked up that mail, filled that out, and mailed it back in. We just know that the ballot for that address came back into us.
Right.
They also probably have software that will detect bots. And possibly they might be able to, I'm not sure what their security is, but they may be able to get an IP address as well to find out.
Oh,
where
I
the
can
person
ask them
is.
that.
Yeah, ask about that. That would be good.
But
Thank
wait a minute, guys, to carry out Warren's thinking, although I wish you'd use another board member as an example all the time. But anyway, when you send in a ballot, you have to you sign one part. So that's what they verify, the fact that you've signed and your address with our records. When they open it, yeah, your ballot's there, so they they're not supposed to know who voted or how you voted, but they do have your name and, your address, et cetera. I don't know with the online.
It's separate from the ballot and then it's like thrown out. So
But my point is that they had to have gone through that effort to really know where this was mailed to, et cetera, when they have that ballot to be able to return it. With the pin, I guess what I think Warren's asking is, with the pin and you're just online, you don't have the actual individuals identifying him or herself. Is that, I think I'm not sure if that's what Warren's asking. I'm just asking.
I mean, I guess what I'm asking is if, I mean, is there any other way to verify that the voting was legit? Like, say there was some question that, that was extreme that came up that we were like, hey, this doesn't make sense. Is there any way to go back and verify that, say whatever, my neighbor voted, one way, and to verify that? I mean, say someone got a hold of the pins through some other way besides the US mail. Suppose they got it through a breach in the company that generated the pins. And
I'll
that-
ask that. Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah,
I'll ask them.
okay.
All right, Lynn, Jen, Bill, and then we'll move on so that Sandy can get the additional information we need.
I don't know. I mean, I think that to me, it just seems like a very almost verging on paranoia that we're thinking of our fellow residents in Oakland Mills creeping around, stealing ballots out of people's mailboxes, and it is an HOA election basically. So this is, it just seems like, I think we're
Election.
jumping to very apocalyptic scenarios for what might happen to overthrow an Oakland Mills election. But that's just me. I think we need to kind of step back and take a deep breath and think what it is that we're actually talking about. We're not talking about launching nuclear weapons or anything. So that's just my 2 cents.
All right, Jen?
Point well taken.
So my question is, if Warren's scenario was the case, wouldn't this company have some sort of alert that would come up saying it's been breached and they would shut the system down or something like that, so that we couldn't, we wouldn't be able to go ahead with the election if something came up of that nature? And then my second question would be, since other villages have done this before, have there been any other instances of this happening before? This seems just kind of like, I kind of agree with Lynn. It just kind of seems like it's, I don't know if it's really that big of an issue.
I'll ask them, but no one mentioned any concerns or breach or hacks. I guess the company might know it was hacked by seeing very odd things, but they're not going to know it was hacked by seeing how many voted for a different person. To them, that's just the election results. But I'll ask them what more is in place that they might not have told me to alert them to any kind of breach of an election or anything like that.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Yeah, and along those same lines, I mean, to kind of assume that because an election went in a way that we didn't anticipate, you know, how many elections have we all lived through where it went in a direction we didn't anticipate, and we don't, you know, say, oh, you know, it must be bad actors who came and intervened. It's just that's politics.
Okay, Bill, you had one more thing and then we'll move on.
Yes, to me, what is at stake is CA's open space. Why was so much money put into coming up with slates to get elected? Okay, that we had never seen before. There's a lot of money at stake in developing open space. Now, if we do go electronic after the election, will we have a list of all of the people who voted? And these people voted by paper and these people voted by electronics. And then were we going to have the election committee contact all of those people who voted and ask them, did you vote, to verify that they did vote? Okay. If you don't do that, then you could have corruption either through people chasing down ballots out of other people's mailboxes, which is a difficult way to do it. Paper is more difficult to hack. Whereas electronically, you could come up with a lot of people voting who didn't vote, but they're tallied as voting. And that if you don't have the election committee going back and double checking, then I personally would not feel comfortable and confident in the results of the election. Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Bill. Sky, did you have an answer to a specific question? Otherwise, we'll have to move on. Okay.
Yeah, you raised some good questions that I do not know about. However, I was at the counting of the election in Hickory Ridge Saturday afternoon, and the results, most people voted online. The results from the online voting exactly mirrored the results of those who used the paper ballot. So that was an added thing that made us believe that everything was above board. And that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so Sandy, you'll do some follow-up and report back again. Meanwhile, I'll move on to the next old business item, and this is sort of a standing item, the deferred maintenance at Oakland Mills Middle and Oakland Mills, I missed the H, Oakland Mills Middle and Oakland Mills High. It says Oakland Mills Middle twice. So much for my proofreading. Just, you know, quick bottom line. First of all, thank you, Ginny, and thank you to everyone who came out and spoke. Also, thank you to everyone, and I don't even know all of you who wrote in. You know, in addition to some of our usual people speaking up, we actually did have 2 Oakland Mills High students speaking up. I may be biased, but I thought that red-haired freshman was absolutely adorable. But I also appreciate the senior who who spoke up. You know, one of the council members, District 4, actually said, oh, after this testimony we've heard, what would it take to get these things started now? And the school system said about $9 million immediately to start planning. So I have been in touch with a member of the Board of Education on what the logistics might be to modify the request. And as Ginny brilliantly suggested, maybe use some of this $63 million in COVID money the county has to get things started. And she was looking into it and has since received a 600-page manual on how to use COVID money. So I asked for that emergency, hey, can I fire something off? And I haven't fired it off yet because I want to make sure we get it right. Because, you know, just firing something off to the county council and county executive doesn't get us anywhere, because unless the school system asks for it and earmarks it, you know, them giving it to them doesn't accomplish anything for Oakland Mills. If they just say, here, school system, here's $9 million, that doesn't help us. It needs to be in the school system's request earmarked for these specific projects. So I'm still working on that. There was a work session at 1 o'clock today where the council resolution for the capital budget was the last item on the agenda. I was at work, so I still need to watch the video. My understanding from someone who reported back was the council member from District 5 was questioning some of the prioritization. It didn't sound like others were joining in that questioning. So my hope is that we would have the support of District 2 and District 3 because that's the attendance area for Oakland Mills. And District 4 seemed to be voicing her support at the meeting after the testimony by saying, why don't we do these even faster? Ashley, I know you're out there, and I know Dr. Jones wanted to have a conversation with me on this. I'd appreciate anything you can do to get that scheduled, because I'd love to talk more to him about it, make sure that if he has any questions that I can help answer or help get answers to, it's taken care of. Because I would love to. I know we can't tie all this up in a bow immediately. It's a long-term process, but I'd like to do all we can to ensure we're setting things up as best as possible for those two schools.
Okay, yep, I'll definitely take that note back to him, Jonathan.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any questions on that item? Okay, I'll go right to the board chair report. So I did forward an email, got in touch with the owner of NYC Pizza, and of all things, what was holding them up is high-speed internet. Apparently that part of the Village Center building, the part that Cedar owns, was never wired for high-speed internet. Their point of sale terminals require high-speed internet for their secure transactions and everything. And they've been working with actually both providers, Comcast or Verizon, to see who can get them wired up for their high-speed internet. But he said that he will reach back out to me because he'd like to have us all join him for a soft opening, and then he'll have a grand opening at the appropriate time. So that's the follow-up to the questions about NYC Pizza last week. I think I'll let Lynn cover what's happening with the vacant lots, and she's back. I know I said a few things about it last week in my remarks, but Lynn really has point on that from an architecture perspective, unless Lynn, there's anything you want me to comment on now. Okay. All right. And then the other thing is, as you all know, because I sent you an email, we've been concerned about Stevens Forest Road, and Warren and I are working together on, putting that request for a comprehensive review of Stevens Forest Road. Unfortunately, over the past week or so, we both had some situations pop up where we talked briefly, but we didn't get to have the meeting we wanted to have. And then another situation popped up that needed immediate attention. I think we were talking about that intersection of Stevens Forest and Kilimanjaro, and the no turn on red, and the failure of people to yield to pedestrians, all that fun stuff. Last week, an Oakland Mills student was not severely injured, just bruised, but he was hit, crossing his bike across Stevens Forest. So from the west side of Stevens Forest to the east to go up Kilimanjaro to go to the middle school. He was hit on the walk sign in the crosswalk by a driver turning right on the light and not yielding to the pedestrians. So, what we've, and it actually, it turns out another gentleman on a bike was hit and also fortunately not severely injured in the same place the week prior. I learned that after I learned about the child on the bike. So, we're very fortunate in that 2 Oakland Mills residents had accidents there that I think are avoidable and weren't hurt, but we won't be that fortunate forever. So I sent a note to Dr. Jones right as I heard about this, and he did call me right back. And I told him what happened. I sent that follow-up email that I also sent to all of you with the pictures of that intersection and, the video of what goes on in that intersection, and the DPW response about, how often they evaluate crosswalks and repaint them. And I know he was getting in touch with DPW either that evening or the next morning, and there was going to be follow-up. And unfortunately, if there has been follow-up, I'm not looped in yet. But Ashley, is there any update you can give us on that?
Yep. So we actually have a meeting this week
Okay.
set for Thursday to have that conversation with them.
Okay. All
So
right.
then I'll definitely update you all after that.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, if I, of all those ideas that I tossed out there, and these are things that Warren and I had discussed, and we've even discussed some in board meetings, I mean, really, if there's anything they can do there, even short term, I realize erecting new signals, takes a little bit of time, but I mean, if everything's computerized to the point that they can program a delay into that light right away, or just, come out and fix the lines on the crosswalk so that people can actually see they're driving over a crosswalk. At this point, I think anything would help, because, I mean, as you can see from that email, there are so many things wrong and that can go wrong there, that it's unfortunately not too surprising that this has happened, but we don't want it to happen again. All right, that's all I had, because really, I covered the education stuff because we had it as old business, but I'll mention something education later. That's all I have on the board chair report, unless you have questions for me. All right, I'll send it over to Ginny.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thanks for the compliment, but I think, you deserve credit for years of working on education issues, and it's kind of nice to see that there may be a victory in sight, and even, one that could start immediately, because frankly, 63 million, at least in my little mind, is a lot of money. And the county is asking, they get all this stuff from the feds and then the state, and they're asking, how can we spend it? Apply for it. I don't understand the 600-page COVID thing. I'm sure we can squeeze in there someplace, like the tile that one of the students said, she was fantastic. I mean, the two students, you're right, were fantastic in testifying. I think that went a long way to helping us. But the tile falling on a desk in front of a student, there's safety issues, not getting mold in the classrooms. There's things you can tie to COVID with not really too much effort, I think. So let's just, the point is, let's get with it. I think we're close to getting, we should have 2 council members, Dr. Jones, and Deb Young certainly seemed really interested. And I don't think she has any students from her district going to Oakland Mills Middle or High School, but Christiana Rigby does, as we talked about in the Education Committee. So what we were talking about is Owen Brown Village Board send a letter as well to the council and the Board of Education saying, hey, use this. It's only 9 million. Use it and let's get this going right away. Allview, Arrowhead, the other places we're talking about where students are coming. So they get the message. It's not just Oakland Mills, it's also District 3. I think that's important politically. And then also eventually they write to the delegation when it gets to that level. So I think you may have maybe I'm overly optimistic, a real good chance for a victory. Who knows in politics, right? But my congratulations to you and your daughter. Your daughter was fantastic. Yeah, I was really impressed. And they went first, which was good. Instead of the adults, the students went first. So that was great. Okay, to get off on, that wasn't my subject, to get on the CA board. The budget is probably, well, there are 2 issues. One is Symphony Woods, and I can't talk about that, but the other is, and talk about open space bill, right? That is probably the most valuable thing that CA has and has an obligation to preserve and be good stewards. And I'm not going to go off on that rant, but anyway. Though the budget, October 28th, we are having a hearing on this, and I hope you'll all get a chance to read the budget and give your comments. I've received some comments already from people on the 3 scenarios. And just tell us what you think, actually. And we should be trying to make somewhat of a decision to give the staff some guidance by December 9th. So that they can finish preparing the budget. Right now, it'd be very difficult for them to come up with a budget when there are three different scenarios. The third one is really all the pools, outdoor pools will be open and free, no charge. But what are the implications of that? One is a 9% increase in your assessment. You know, do you want to balance that? And also loss of membership. They're predicting in the clubs, because if you brought a play membership and you really only brought it because you want to use the outdoor pools for the most part, you could care less about a few other things you got. You would just do that and then maybe join Planet Fitness for $10 a month and get the, you know, use of some equipment when you felt like it. So that could mean a loss of, by not having play membership, you could have a loss in other memberships. I think it's really difficult in scenario 2, for example. Well, let me get to scenario 1. Scenario 1 is same old, same old. I want to check and see if it's really same old, because there is a section here where the CEO wants to hire a community engagement person. I want to find out, one, what will that cost? Why is there a need? I think the village board does a lot of community engagement, village board members, village board staff. CA board members do a lot of community engagement. The staff, depending on their programs, do a lot of community engagement. And now we have 2 really good people in communications to bring that all together and communicate what that is. It lists from CA, and you guys do it with people like Sandy, Amy, and Brigida. So what's the purpose of having what could be, I'm making this up, so don't hold me to this, 50 grand, 60 grand a year, you know. So I want to understand scenario 1 when it says keep everything basically the same. Is that accurate, actually? Okay. Couple other things in terms of the facilities meeting their costs, that you know, community members would have to pay much higher rates, actually. They wouldn't be subsidized in some of these. Is that realistic? And I guess I don't understand one of Lynn's favorite topics, where the Haven fits into this. There's nobody there. How are you gonna, you know, what are we talking about here? You know, the horse center, you know, just name it, arts. I don't think arts have ever really paid for themselves. Is this what, we're an HOA, is this what this is about? Do we really expect that all of our facilities will be able to pay for themselves? Is, you know, one of the questions we're going to have to address. In terms of outdoor pools being free, you could, some people think that's a great idea. Other people are concerned about losing membership for other, which will have implications for negative revenue in other facilities. There's also something that I don't think is well known. We have free Sundays at all of the outdoor pools when they're open. Second Sunday of the month is free. That needs to be maybe publicized more, and CA is trying to do that more. Also, CA is doing more work in the Title I schools and is trying to, I forget whether we have 8 or 10 of them now, but we're trying to get 2 more. There are benefits to that. We have programs for income qualified individuals that we are supporting. And Jennifer, thank you for your information on what Parks and Recreation is doing. I glanced at it quickly tonight, but I have to take a look at it a little bit more. But it looks like the county is subsidizing people that are in need, as CA is doing, but that's $1 million. So what are we going to add? How do you handle that? So if people think, well, people can't afford the outdoor pools, that's why we need to make them free, and people that are very low income, they're not using them because they can't afford them, they don't know that we have this other program. Now, whether the county should be helping us, since they help people outside of Columbia, get subsidies or scholarships, I think, Jennifer, and in a quick look, I think they were calling them scholarships. But you can correct me. You had more time to look at, and your dad's an expert on this anyway. You know, why aren't we getting some subsidy from the county that will reduce our cost, help us subsidize people that we are subsidizing? I still have that I know, I keep talking about that, but I still think that's important, that we get more support from the county for a lot of things that CA is doing. So that's $1 million a year. How does that all fit in? And that's what we're all going to be struggling together on. And how does this work? So November 4th, the meeting will be strictly on listening to residents' feedback on the budget issues. So people will have time. The 28th, they can come, residents speak out. Perhaps they don't have enough time, but by November 4th, they will, and the whole meeting will be just dedicated to that. The 28th, there'll be a 90-minute presentation with questions by the staff, and that would be a good one to either listen into or look at it after the fact as to what the staff was presenting. So I don't know, do you have any questions or concerns or?
I have a comment, Ginny. Thank you for that. I was a soccer coach, not as involved as Bill, but I did it for about 8 years. And one of my players was, almost all my players knew how to swim, and they were involved in the swim team and that sort of thing. But one of my players, he was a great soccer player, but he lived in a different neighborhood. And we had a party, and he jumped in the pool with everybody else, and he sunk to the bottom. And I had no idea. He just didn't know how to swim. And he lived in Oakland Mills. And that's what I'm concerned about, because he was from a poor area and he just didn't know how to swim. And I think that would be important, you know, to get kids to know how to swim, and just having it free once a month on a Sunday, that doesn't work for them. And that would be, I think about those kids, and I think that experience would be rich for them if they could somehow have access to the pools on a more regular basis, so they could learn to swim. Because I learned to swim as a little kid, and it's something I love to do, and I think it's important that everyone has that opportunity. And that's why I'm for providing that to disadvantaged people. I don't really have a solution, but that based on that experience, I think that would be important. And I think it would have a big impact for a lot of disadvantaged kids.
Warren, do you know if he knew about the income qualified and had applied for that, his family or anything like that? So that he would have been able to use the pool, all of our facilities year round. Do you know?
No, I didn't know that. I mean, there was a language barrier, so we didn't.
I'd like to talk to you maybe after about that, because there is an issue where we have to reach out more, I think, to certain communities and also get other people reaching out to them, because there is a feeling about using the pools from certain communities that they really, one is income qualified, yes, and you can deal with that, and we're working on that. But the other is just they don't want to, they don't see that. So when we get a chance, maybe to talk about it.
Sure.
Yeah, but I assume our lifeguards went in and rescued.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right away, yeah.
Yeah.
We had 212 people needing to be rescued the last summer, up from whatever the figure was, maybe 180 or something, the previous, 219, and this was the 220 figure. And the reason the aquatics division said what they thought was people just, a lot of kids, people just haven't been swimming enough. And so they suddenly get in there and they just wound up where they had to rescue a lot more people.
Hmm.
That's part of it. The other thing is the cost could be close to $1 million. The aquatics department is still looking at it in terms of just the Howard County, what happened to you? The Howard County minimum wage bill that the council is considering. There's a concern that could, whatever your position is on it, you've got to understand the impact on CA. It could be about $1 million. So it's getting extremely expensive to operate the pools, to find sufficient lifeguards, assistant managers and managers for the pools. It's very, very difficult. We couldn't find enough managers to open another pool in Dasher Green, enough lifeguards and managers and assistant managers to open the Dasher Green pool, even though we finally got a little more money. We just weren't able to open that. We opened one in, I think it was Bryant Woods opened, above the 15 that we had originally opened. So it's more complicated. I'd love to talk to you about that because I honestly want to ask you a lot of questions about that young man, was it?
Yes, he was.
And then I want to talk to you about what I think is part of what's going on, and maybe we can work together on that.
Glad to talk to you. That'd be great. And just to say, the rescue was so fast. I had no idea that it even happened. I heard about it afterwards. So I just had I was talking to the kids, and the next thing I know, he's out of the pool and okay. They took care of him right away. So yeah, the lifeguards did a great job. So
Did he ever go back, or did he?
no, I don't think he ever went in the pool again.
Well, the other part of this, and I won't take a lot of time on this, I think is swim lessons. And Sandy, remember it was one of the issues with the board. Were you going to talk to that where we were frustrated?
I was going to mention that.
Okay, Talbot Springs area and how.
Yeah, and I would fully support looking at that. And their Talbot Springs is an underutilized pool, and Nancy Thompson said it broke her heart to see the kids staring out their windows at a pool that they couldn't go into. So CA did institute a program of free swim, and it went on for a few summers. I don't think it was before they had good advertising at CA and had the outreach that they do. And they also needed a Hispanic instructor. And so without that, the kids came, but they couldn't understand the instructions, or the parents couldn't understand. And it was, maybe a session of like 10 swims, learn to swim, basic, learn not to drown in water. And I think that was wonderful. And I think it's a way to use an underutilized pool, and the underutilized pools are in the neighborhoods where you want to do outreach and get the community that's not engaged. So that's what I did want to say. And it's something I think probably CA should look at.
Well, as you said, they did. And also I thought, Sandy, the police were actually running some of those.
They did that only when they were using the Talbot Springs Center for a summer program. So that was really a whole separate from the free swim, but they did enable it. Now Talbot Springs is occupied in the summer, but it was a nice thing to work with the police youth, because again, those kids are not going to the pool. So there could be other areas where the police are in Oakland Mills at a Blandair Park, and they open a pool up at a certain time, and an underutilized pool for kids who are part of a police program to swim. But there's a lot of ways to do that. And I think the free swim just was great, because the last thing you want is what Warren saw.
So just quickly, sorry, Lynn, that boy was from Talbot Springs.
Yeah, I was guessing, but okay.
So, yeah, I think it was great when it was.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are ways that not only CA has been tried in the past, but also the Oakland Mills Village Board talked about this a lot for years. Many boards talked about how do we deal with getting more people involved. And those boards were very frustrated about no matter what you seem to do. We had Calvin Ball, we had what other community organizers, who else? We had one after the other that were trying to help with those programs in terms of engaging them. And it wasn't, it's not that easy. And that's what we need to talk about more. But okay.
Lynn?
Yeah, this is a follow-up to your thing, Warren, and also Ginny, what you just said. And when I was growing up many years ago in California, that it was considered that knowing how to swim was a life skill and important for safety. And so in order to graduate from high school, you had to have completed driver's education and you had to have completed a Red Cross swimming course. And it was part of the schools, and they worked out something, and you could do it at your, whenever. It wasn't something that it was something where everybody in the school was marched, everybody in a certain grade was marched off to the pool. You could sign up for it, just like you could sign up for the driver's ed, but you had to document that you had completed this course. And I don't know if if the problem is in the financing of it and all the rest, isn't there a way that we could get the schools involved in this as well? And Bill, this would be up your alley with what do we do with coaches? And I don't know, do the high schools have swim teams? No. Oh, well, okay, so to start with that, but of course in Columbia, I mean, what percentage of the kids growing up in Columbia actually have been on swim team and they learn to swim that way, but maybe there'd be a way of kind of getting the schools involved in this. Just a thought, because it breaks my heart, because it's where we have our house at the beach, there were 2 lifeguards that drowned because they were out rescuing people, and the waves were so high that they just flipped over, got hit, and drowned. So it's and these were people who were out there, didn't know how to swim, and got caught up in a current, and there you go. So I think it's a really serious, important thing to pursue.
Oh my God. Lynn, they do have the neighborhood swim teams. Okay.
Yeah, my kids were both on swim team.
Yeah, ours were too, and the Clippers.
Mhm.
That's available, and that's also subsidized for an individual.
Yeah.
And so there are many opportunities. And as I said, we had community outreach people trying to get people involved. We've had village boards. It's more than that when we've just got to figure out how to crack it.
No, I think getting the schools involved and making it more of a requirement than you have to have so many classes in PE. You have to have certain things to graduate. Why not learning to swim?
Yeah, and just food for thought. When you think about it, Jenny and Warren, you have to get the parents involved, because if parents don't swim, children don't swim.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So a lot of that is the parents too, when it comes to water and things like that, especially if they have a fear of it. They're not gonna, you gotta think about that, put that in equation.
Yeah, and the swim lessons were for every age. It wasn't just for kids. It was kids couldn't come without their parents.
Yeah,
There,
and
there were adults in those swim lessons, because actually my older daughter learned to swim at those $2 lessons at Talbot Springs.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't say this, Jenny, don't freak out, but we paid a lot of money for the Learn to Swim over the winter at the swim center. And then she learned to swim at the $2 lessons at Talbot Springs after 2 weeks. So, but I mean, there were a good number of kids and also adults there of all ages learning to swim, because, you could go in there and you could hand them $2 and you got a swim lesson.
yeah, I think there's another thing that some families just are more interested in other things. Soccer, swimming is not their thing. Those that want to be Clippers, those that want to be on that's one thing. But there are others that frankly would like maybe more soccer fields or something like that, and that's what they're interested in. So how do we try and have it available if they want it? But I see your point, Lynn, and I guess take it up with our District 2 representative.
I mean, my point is that, yes, it can be a sport, but it's also, and it can be a recreational activity, it can be a pastime, but it's also a life skill. And just like learning how to cross the street safely, now that we're having flooding all the time, I think it's
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, that's what helped some of my residents get involved, because of what happened in New Orleans. And they saw that water could rise. And I had a lot of participation about just wanting to teach the children to learn how to swim.
Yeah.
Just out of that event.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, actually, then we could combine driving with swimming. How do you get out of the window from your
Yes.
car that's now
Right.
flooding and get out of there?
Up on the roof and dive in.
Right. And Lynn, the other answer to your question was a very good one about, do we have swim teams? It's also a very, for the high schools, it's very sad because people have talked about that for a long time, have wanted that competition. And it would mean a kid would be able to get a letter, like they can get in football, basketball,
Yeah.
get it in swimming. Okay, I've been given this speech before. It comes down to the county not wanting to have the complexes that other counties have. 50-meter pool, Olympic-sized swimming pool is usually required. And we don't want to do that. People are trying to get CA to do it. I would have loved to have seen that with county as a partner. We did a lot of work on that and it went no place. So that's the sad thing, because we should have that. That should be available to kids. They have. Why are they discriminated against as a Clipper or something else? Or
That's a sport.
it's a life, but you said
A
something.
life sport.
You said a life sport. So that's just my own pet peeve. But anyway, we can talk to Ashley about that. Okay. All right. So,
Right.
so at any rate, there's a lot in this budget and a lot of options. Let's see, the arts, as I said, how are they going to be able to support themselves? Any charge community members for participating in any programs and services? Just think of all the programs and services we have. And how do you make these revenue neutral, a lot of them? What are you willing to subsidize? This is not simple. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Rena, did you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Ginny.
Thank you,
Sandy.
Jonathan.
I really don't have a whole lot. We're at the end of our second quarter, so I will have a handle on where we are mid-year by mid-November. Because once we get our bank statements for October in, we set up an appointment with the accountant, possibly by the 9th of November, but I doubt it. Because we won't have had everything in by then, but everything in the office is running very smoothly. I mean, this past weekend, we had events Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 2 on Sunday. So people are back. Everything's running fine. And I just want to give a shout out. I don't know if I did it at the last meeting, but to our Covenant team, I'll mention them tonight. It's Mike and Amy and Mike and Carrie and Karina. And it's really, they work really well together. So it's a nice mix, and they don't always see each other or overlap, but every day they're talking with one another. And I just think it's working very well. So shout out to them tonight.
Sandy, going back to our new business, if you think that the financials will come in sometime between the 9th and the 23rd, should we do the donations on the 23rd instead of the 9th? So you have a clearer picture of what our finances.
Yeah, that would be good, because there's no way
Okay.
we can have it by the 9th. So I'll put
Okay.
that for old business on the 23rd,
Okay, great.
my anniversary. Okay, but no big deal. Miss Jenny. It's okay.
Oh,
So I'll put the donation discussion.
right.
Okay.
Ginny, do you have a question for Sandy?
yeah, for Sandy, right. Sandy, do you have any idea of when you might get the cash reserve money, which is, I think, about 23,000 from CA?
No, we have to give it to them actually, and it's 26,000. And and they're taking it out of our next quarter's money. But Dennis, I listened to the CA board meeting, and I also brought it up with him when we had our tour, because, by the time they figure it out, we're going to be into the next year. And I think at the CA board meeting, he said within the next 60 days, they would present to the villages options for how we wanted to choose to use the money based on, I guess he was going to be talking to the environmental people, John McCoy maybe, or Jeremy.
Yeah, that concerns me. He was going to be talking to John McCoy. And I said, why, I raised that concern. I asked that question. That's how you got that answer. But I
Right.
raised concern. I said, wait a minute. This is, why can't the village have some say? Yes, it has to be in the category of environmental. But why can't the village also play a role and partner and maybe have some suggestions? And then it was like shock. So I guess I'm raising this with the board and that I think you should have some say. If you should think about it anyway, okay? So we can move on to something else, but okay, never mind.
I mean, I agree. I mean, I respect John because this is his background, right? So, I respect his professional opinion.
Yeah.
I think one way we could do this potentially is, he and Dennis work up options, bring us those options. And if none of those options seem appealing to the village board, we could try to come up with the alternative. But with that said, I wouldn't claim to, know better what the best value environmental project is over someone like John. So I guess we have to be careful about that as well, because this money is intended to accomplish something, in support of the environment, not just something the village would
Right.
like to see.
They
No, no.
wanted to support Columbia wide, they said, even though it might start in our village, but that's a good option, John.
Yeah, and it's not just John. I know at the hearing, Dennis just said John, but Jeremy also advises, and I think Sandy just said this, advises on, he's the liaison to the Climate Sustainability and Change Advisory Committee for CA, and he advises on a lot of things. So it'd really be both of them. I'm just saying, I like that approach in that I think you should have some say in what's happening. Okay, that's it. Drop it. I drop it. I mean, I'm not dropping it. I drop it for now.
All right. Anything else for Sandy? All right. Where did my agenda go? Okay, we're on to committee reports. Lynn, architecture.
Okay, I've got 3 things, and so I'll start with the one that I think is the most straightforward first. And well, they're all straightforward, but the one that we can just kind of dispatch with, and that is that Karina has sent me a 15-day final notice and a request for us to go ahead and approve in advance a resolution that would go to CA. And so I'm going to read it. It is to a resident at 9452 Sargosa Place. And should I give the name of the owner, the property owner?
Doesn't matter, it's public.
Okay, Mary Ann Cleveland is the name of the property owner. And it's a violation that this is the 15-day notice. So this is the second note, this is the third and final notice. And it's for the violation includes, but may not be limited to, an unapproved in-home business. And so the notice is that she would need to apply for the business, or that she would have to desist from operating the business until to stop action from going forward. So then the resolution, should we not get a response, so this would go out tomorrow, I guess, if we approve this today. And then it would kind of sit for another couple of weeks, give us some time for her to get back to us. So she has 15 days to get back to us. And if we don't hear back, then it goes to the ARC, the Architecture Resource Committee, which is the CA committee that deals with this. And it is again to ask them that because of the violations that are at 9452 Sargosa Place for the unapproved in-home business, that we ask them to join with us as a plaintiff, et cetera, place a flag on the property, deny access, all the things that go along with the resolution. And so I've been tangentially, not as much as, certainly not as much as Karina and Sandy, but I've been tangentially involved in this, and also talking with other neighbors of this and people who live around this property. And so I think it's well beyond the time to go ahead and pursue this further. So I would like a motion that we go ahead and send the 15-day final notice.
Lynn, I'm sorry, what's the street number again?
It's 9452 Sargosa Place, Sargosa.
All right, I'll motion that we send the 15-day notice and also prepare the CA letter, should there not be a response to the 15-day notice on 9452 Sargosa Place for an unapproved in-home business.
Okay, can I have a second on that?
I will second that.
Thank you, Warren. Okay, let's vote. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, then it's 6-0-0. So that's approved. Great. Thank you. I think there are going to be many happy people to hear that this is
Congratulations, Lynn.
forward.
Bad dogs.
And then that leads me to the next, which is, this is Karina could not be here tonight. She wanted to be here to give her report in person, but she's had a family emergency and is not able to do it. But quite a long time ago, I think probably almost a month ago now, because then I couldn't be at the meeting and so we postponed it. But she sent this to me about a month ago, and it's her report of the violations. And so this would have been from COVID, which we're taking as from the 12th of March 2020, from the 12th of March 2020 up until now. There were 64 cases were closed, 8 cases went to ARC, went to CA, 5 are still open, 16 are not OMCA issues, and 94 total for cases that have been considered. Then I didn't quite understand this, Sandy. It was from the start of COVID until 10/4/21. So I think
That was like March 15th.
from
Whatever.
March 15th until then. So now we have 56 cases were closed. 1 is at the ARC, 28.
One more, one addition.
One additional. 28 are additional open, 27 not OMCA issues. And that brings it up to a total from 94 to 112.
Yeah, so you have to kind of subtract from the 112.
Yeah,
That are closed. So
yeah.
do your math.
And so the existing cases now, yeah, this is the total. So the existing cases are 9 are at the ARC and 33 are open. And this is kind of interesting right here, which is she gives, and we all know this from just our own experience living in Oakland Mills, that examples of the non-enforceable, when you say it's not an Oakland Mills issue, not a covenant issue, then why? And here are the 4 things that she lists. Of course, there are many others. Dumping of trash. So we have things where people have dumped trash somewhere. We have no way of knowing who they are. I mean, we can try to get it cleaned up, but there was one instance where time and time again, somebody was dumping trash in the corner of someone's property. It wasn't their trash, and it was actually bulk stuff, but we couldn't really track down who it was. It wasn't the property owner's issue. It was whoever was illegally doing that. Vehicles parked in the street when they're not registered and are illegally parked. So that's not something that's a county issue. Noise, again, a county issue. And common areas that are actually part of a secondary HOA. So that makes it a little cloudier. So if it's something with another HOA, an HOA within Oakland Mills, or bordering Oakland Mills Village and another village, it makes it a little less clear how we resolve it. And then the examples of common violation complaints, seasonal yard maintenance, I'd say that's down. We used to get a lot of those. They're not cutting their grass, they're not raking their leaves, not so much now. unapproved exterior alterations, including tree removals. We get a significant number of those. Recreational vehicles parked in the driveway, RVs, boats, and trailers. So that's all, you know, up for consideration as a violation. And then this, which we just saw, and she calls it less common, but very time consuming to address, possible unapproved in-home businesses. And this is a real difficult one, because we can say we think you have an in-home business, but if they don't apply for it, it's you know, it's just hard to document it. Hard. It's just a, you know, a squirrely problem. But we're, you know, bit by bit, we're finding our way with resolving those. So yeah, I think this is a very good report. I'm just glad to see that 9 are at CA. I think that's great to see, and that only 33 are open. There were times when we had that 112 total would have been the total for unresolved, because we were still working our way through a big backlog. And then the final thing that I know a lot of people are concerned about is the situation with what was the Exxon lot, and with the commercial vehicles being parked on the lot. And we did get no parking, no trespassing signs put up, and you can see how much good that has done. It seems in a way to have encouraged people to park additional vehicles there. They said
No parking without a permit.
oh wow,
They're all permitted.
yeah, right. Look, I've got tags on my truck.
Pay and go.
So anyway, there again, you know, I can't say too much about it, because as you all know, the property is in the process of changing hands. Fingers crossed, you know, pretty quickly this will be resolved. The property will be developed for something that we all like. And to that end, the NRAC, which is the non-residential committee, the non-residential reviewing committee, met, went through it, had asked, I think met twice with the applicant, and
Yeah.
and the first time asked for different changes and asked for clarification and asked for details, and they came back with amendments to the original plan that met the approval of the RAC. I agreed. I passed it to go on to the next step, which is to go to the county, and the county schedules now, they will schedule a pre-submission. So the applicant still hasn't not submitted their application to the county. So they're going to schedule a pre-submission review, and we, as well as anyone else in Howard County, will have an opportunity to see it's a community meeting, so it's available to everybody in the community in Howard County. The applicant will again present the application as it has been amended, and anyone in the community can ask questions, make comments at that point. And so that's the next step. So we're all just kind of, you know, following step by step the process for this. And you know, I, for one, speaking just as myself and not as a board member, I just hope that it goes through pretty seamlessly and quickly. I'm talking about sort of safety issues with Stevens Forest Road, and people, you know, kids going back and forth to school on their bikes, and people riding bikes. I see kids walking through that lot every time I go by there. They're walking through that lot, and I'm just thinking of my own 2 young grandsons seeing a tractor trailer with cars piled in the back of it, and you know what a temptation that could be, and what an injury could take place there. So, you know, fingers crossed on that one. And as soon as we get a date for when this pre-submission community meeting is scheduled, and you know, details for how you can sign up if you want to take part in it, we'll get that out to you. So any questions from anyone? Oh, Jenny, your hand's raised.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Whoops, great job. With the community meeting, what are the next steps after that? Does it, you know, go to the planning board, the council? What are the next?
I think that's what that is determined by by Department of Planning and Zoning. They decide if it goes to the planning board, if it goes to the DAP, then that's their determination.
Okay, so there's nothing in law that says it's got to be approved by X.
No, and to tell you the truth, I find it confusing as to how they make that decision, how they make that choice. I know I've heard that somewhere there's something written down that makes it clear as mud as to where it goes.
Oh,
But, I do know that the planning and zoning, that they have a task force that looks at it and sees how it meets all of the requirements. There are going to be a ton of requirements aside from, our concerns with aesthetics. There are concerns about, a big concern I have is that the lot as it exists now, with all those commercial vehicles sitting on it, leaking their oil onto the impermeable surface, that every time it rains, that all washes off down and into the watershed and into the creek that's right there. So the sooner we can get that all kind of cleaned up, the better. But I know that they have lots of criteria about safety and, all kinds of things that will be reported back to planning and zoning and to the and will be presented when the applicant in the pre-submission hearing.
You raised an excellent point where you would think the county would be moving very, very quickly in terms of environmental hazards. That's
And safety and
yeah,
safety.
right. Yeah, because it's been going on for at least a month now or something.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we're approaching half a year. This started in late spring or early summer.
Right, early summer. And of course, for the years, the decades.
The ownership hasn't changed yet, so it's
right.
Yeah, my point is, it's almost like, why hasn't something been filed against the current owner for a hazard?
That's what we can't get into in a public meeting, because that's where we had.
Not Oakland Mills. It'd be the county.
Oh, by somebody else. Oh, yeah.
I'm talking about the county. You raised, most of us are looking at it as like a truck, and maybe the new owners can get the truck's possession of it. It's on their new.
Ginny, we are working with the county on that.
Right,
Sandy and I met with Dr. Jones and his staff on it.
Okay, because what did you just say? A year? Or half a year?
Half a year, 6 months about.
Okay, but I didn't think the environmental hazard part. And I remember when there was gas leaking at the gas station years ago, it actually wound up going over to the Verona, which is what was something else.
Which is where it's going now.
Yeah, it wasn't just staying on the property, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the thing with water, right? It flows. So, and it takes anything with it that it flows over.
Okay, a second question. Without mentioning a property, if the RAC turns down an in-home business, and the in-home business doesn't appeal, but then continues to operate not on a regular basis, but I don't know how quite that works, where somehow and the people get the word and they come and get benefit from your business.
Mm-hmm.
Does the RAC get involved?
The RAC gets involved.
Does a covenant advisor get involved again?
Yes, we do. We stay with it, and it can,
Okay.
A legal case.
Go to CA. We can deal with the Department of Planning and Zoning.
The county gets involved.
Yeah.
At their end, they have more opportunity to find a business but we continue because they're in blatant violation of our covenants, and whatever business has been denied. So we pursue that as well.
I'll you may know then already about this. Otherwise,
right.
I'll be offline. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Lynn, anything else architecture?
Nope, nothing more.
All right, Warren? Public space.
Hello, thank you. We met last Tuesday. We talked about Stevens Forest Road, not surprisingly, and we mentioned the two injuries which Jonathan mentioned on the with the bicycles, Kilimanjaro and Stevens Forest. Jonathan and I had also received an email from, I believe her name was Sheila, about the crosswalk on Stevens Forest Road. And she was saying that it was unsafe and not marked well and some other things, and drivers were not recognizing the crosswalk and things like that. So I went out a couple times in the morning because I don't have kids. I never had kids at Stevens Forest, but I, haven't witnessed that. So I saw that. And for the most part, cars were very observant of that. And I thought the markings were very good. The only thing I did see is people on Stevens Forest heading west, past the school. They seem to speed up basically to go to the crosswalk. They go around the turn and do that. And one woman, the 2 days I went there, she had difficulties helping her child get across the street. And I talked to her about that afterwards, and she said that's very common there. But besides that, it seems safe. I'd seen a lot of the sign going east that flashes and says school cross, there's a school in session. That seems to be very effective, and a lot of people are very observant and make sure that anyone crossing is allowed to cross. The one thing I did get a letter from Opal Jones' office from a policeman, and he said, I think you saw it too, Jonathan, that they had observed, and they saw basically what I saw, except they didn't see any the one problem I saw, which happened to the one woman on both days. That was just the one thing that happened. She actually had to pull her son out of the crosswalk because someone probably would have hit them if she hadn't done that. So, but besides that, because of the pedestrian island and all the signs and the flashing, it seems to work very well. But the policeman said that because there was only like 8 people using that it didn't merit having a crossing guard, and they just can't financially have a crossing guard everywhere. So that's where we are on that. But Jonathan, I will do my best to touch base with you in the next couple of days, and we can readdress that, because all of Stevens Forest does need some fixing up. As you know, the No-Mow Hill at Oakland Mills High School, that was mowed. Jonathan mentioned that 2 weeks ago. I'm hoping to discuss, kind of try to get this open again and bring in the Yards Alive people, and maybe we can talk about doing something to improve that hill. I know Bill's very interested in that as well. So on Orchard Green and the Maryland 108 pedestrian crossing, the guys at Public Space wanted to meet with some of the businesses and talk to them. That's been something that's been pushed. So we went out for an hour or two and talked to a few people, and everyone is very supportive of that crosswalk at 108. So we'll probably pursue that more. We're also trying to, we'll put some testimony out. I'll try to bring that by so that we can testify to the county exec about the budget for the budget hearing. So that'll happen in the next couple of weeks. I think it's going to be scheduled. I'm assuming it'll be scheduled in December. The other things are, they're outside of Oakland Mills, but they will affect us. The Dobbin Road pathway, that they're going to put a pathway in on Dobbin Road. It'll be bike lanes. And on the 28th of October at 7 o'clock, the county will have a WebEx if anyone wants to attend to that. Several people from the public space are going to attend that, because that will have a bike lane that goes and connects to Oakland Mills Road at some point. So right now they're in the planning phases of that. But I think that'll be a very useful pathway for the area. And finally, I don't know if anyone knows about free bikes for kids. One of the guys on the public space is a volunteer. He fixes bikes for them. So the idea is that you can donate bikes, and then people are handier than me, fix the bikes up and they give them away free to kids. And this year they've collected 1,500 bikes, and they're cleaning them up, and they're going to give those all away sometime in December. I think it's a great program. If you have a bike, you can look up free bikes for kids and donate, or if you want to help out by washing bikes or fixing them, you can look that up online, and it's a really noble cause.
So if they have any, we've advertised for them before in the e-news. So if they have anything that they can send me to put in the e-news, that would be great.
Okay. I know Ted, I'll see if he can send something. All right, thank you. That's all I have. Any questions? Cool.
Thanks, Warren. Education Committee, just real quick, because I talked about the Oakland Mills Middle and Oakland Mills High from the board perspective. We did have Amy Brooks, who's an English teacher at Oakland Mills High and lives here in Oakland Mills, as well as Regina Coleman, who is the new principal at Oakland Mills Middle and lives here in Oakland Mills at the Education Committee. And they are both interested in getting more students involved in the efforts to advocate for the schools. So we agreed that Sam Hahn and Amy and Mrs. Coleman and I would sort of, get together and try to put together like a little, Google slide deck or something that then, Amy and Mrs. Coleman could introduce to the students at their respective schools, and sort of maybe get them more comfortable in advocating for those two schools when it comes to this capital investment as well as other things. So that was a nice outcome of the Education Committee. The other thing is, if you haven't been by there recently, take a walk or take a drive by Oakland Mills High School. Right between Kilimanjaro Road and the tennis courts, you'll see a bunch of bright orange benches. And you'll see a lot of digging and other stuff going on. That's the outdoor classroom and small performance space that we helped to fund last year with our donation. It will be, when it's done, it will be available as community space. I would assume that the high school gets some priority use, but I even suggested that maybe next spring, when the days are longer again, we'll hold an Education Committee meeting or something out there in the outdoor classroom and performance space. So that's moving along very, very quickly right now. For a while, all the benches and stuff were in front of the school, and they were actually using that for the back to school festival and also for outdoor dining for the kids. And it's all been migrating over to where it's supposed to be. It's all chained down with like concrete anchors in the ground so it can't wander off, because it's, pretty nice, expensive stuff. And they're also doing some leveling and some other work to actually create the classroom space and the little performance area.
And a labyrinth.
And the labyrinth, yes, I'm sorry. And the labyrinth is going in. And if anyone is artistic and has ideas, they're looking for ideas to kind of, I guess, kind of paint, like, decorate the labyrinth so it looks like more than something than just, blocks laid out in the grass. All right, that's all I had on education. I think we can take it to the bulletin board. So I'll go to Amy. Anything from the office?
Trying to get it to, I don't think so.
Still
Still
working
working
on the resale docs.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we're still working on that. It's getting close, but I keep finding little things that we have to update before we put it all together.
All right, Sandy?
Nope.
Okay, Ginny?
Well, there's a movie Friday night unfortunately, it's conflicting with other things that are going on in the schools.
There's been no advertising. Like nothing.
I'm not running it. I want to thank Brigida though and Sandy that tried helping on that, and we'll see what happens.
Well, I think it's gonna rain, but there's also a rain date, so
Yeah,
that might help if it rains.
The weather is supposed to be atrocious Friday unless.
Yeah,
the
so
forecast is
the
changed.
rain date was the next Friday, and that might give them a chance to do some advertising.
What is it? I don't even know.
I
what it
don't
is.
know.
It's
We're just using this.
It's a Disney movie. It will be in
Coco.
Spanish with English subtitles. And
Okay.
it's Oakland Mills local leadership team is sponsoring it. I think it was two residents, Patrick, God, I can't think of the first name.
Patterson.
Patterson, but I mean,
Oh, Patrick and Bronlin.
yeah, it's Patterson, their idea, and it's sort of their project, so we'll see what happens. But the courtyard, they're using the courtyard and working with the teen center on that.
With us.
And with you, yeah, and actually they,
I don't think they are working with the teens.
what?
It's through us because we hired someone, they'll use our bathrooms.
Oh,
they
they're gonna
signed
do
a
that?
contract.
They
Well, they
are-
have to. They had to have one building open,
Okay, I didn't know whether they were
and
gonna.
they
do it.
signed a contract with us.
They did finally, okay, because they were looking at the teen center using those bathrooms because they had an event for Friday night. It keeps changing. So we'll see how it goes. I know there are a lot of people in the Hispanic community that have been publicizing it, so we'll see. But if it's going to rain and everything, that, what can I say? We'll see. That's it.
All right. Rena?
Nothing other that I'll be following up with Officer Lopez regarding the seafood truck.
Oh, the one on the lot, that.
No,
No.
Oh,
it's
that
on the
other one.
lot?
Oh, no, okay, I know the one you're talking about, never mind.
yeah, the one that's down at the end of this street. But when I was talking to him, he was saying that they had tried to get in contact with the owner, but the owner doesn't seem to be interested or even care that people are parking there since he's getting rid of it. And there's not much they can do, with they're not ticketing the cars or the trucks that's there at this time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, thank you. Warren?
Yeah, the Complete Streets Design Manual is open for comments. If anyone wanted to, it's a huge document, but I put in some comments and I thought I'd let you know. I had 3 comments. One of them is that neighborhood streets should be less than 20 miles per hour. Right now, the county is saying they want to keep the speed limit at 35 miles per hour on neighborhood streets, which doesn't make any sense to me. So, and I also said that you should not have center lines on neighborhood streets, that they've shown that slows down traffic enormously.
Warren, what's a neighborhood street? Because I mean, in Oakland Mills, other than I think Stevens Forest at 30, is it 30 or 35 in Farewell? I thought they are all 25 now.
So that's a good question. So there's the posted speed limit and there's the speed limit that people are likely to drive it at, the
Oh,
design
okay.
of the road.
Okay,
So, and in places, they have neighborhood streets that are designed to go 35 miles an hour, even though it might be posted at 30 or, I mean, what's Stevens Forest? Isn't that 30?
I think it's posted 30.
Yeah.
And
It
actually,
should-
Farewell used to be posted 30. I think they lowered that to 25. Stevens Forest may be the only one that's still over 25 posted.
So I believe that neighborhood streets should be 25 miles an hour. 20 miles an hour. If you go 25, if a car hits a person going 25 miles an hour, it's very likely that people will be severely injured. If it's under 25 miles an hour, it's more likely that a person will survive. So I think that there should never be a neighborhood street that's over 25. So I put in my comments, should be 20 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour. So
Did you give your reasoning for that? Because I think that's pretty compelling.
I did, and I quoted Jeff Speck, and he, his, and hit the page where he had that argument. So yes.
Mhm.
And Horizon Foundation is also in supporting that claim as well. So I don't know if it'll happen, but that's there. The other thing is they talked about street trees, and this really isn't in the design manual, but I just read this great book called The Nature of Oaks. And this guy, I don't know if you're familiar with it, Lynn, I see you smiling.
Yeah.
Douglas Talamies, he's amazing. Anyway, I said, I think that the street tree should be oaks now, so. But
And we're
anyway,
Oakland Mills, so.
Oakland Mills, absolutely. We are Oakland Mills. And the other one was, they have for connections to, they call them LTS1 connections to schools. It's like the lowest rated streets. So that a street that a person could ride their bike on that would be safe for someone who's not a good bicyclist, you know, say an 8-year-old child or an old man or something like that. They say that connections to county schools, parks, and libraries should, within a half mile of the project that they're talking about, should provide LTS1 connections. Now that doesn't make sense to me. That's a half a mile when people that walk to high schools have a mile and a half to walk. So I question that as well. It's a mile and a half for high schools and it's a mile for elementary schools and middle schools. So I brought that up as well. So if you guys get a chance, you only have 2 days, but if you want to get on and put in your comments, I'm sure the county would appreciate that. That's it.
Thanks, Warren.
Oh, I do have one other thing. Today's my anniversary. Amy and I have been
anniversary.
married 36
Happy
years.
anniversary.
Thank you.
We all get to spend our anniversaries with one another.
Oh, yes.
All right, Jen.
Nothing from me, but Jenny, I think I can post the event for Friday, I guess the backup date on there too, on the Verona's community board, because I don't think a whole lot of people use it that often. So hopefully it'll get some votes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, Lynn.
Yeah, I said that the date for the pre-submission meeting had not been announced, but it just has. And so it's on Wednesday, November 17th at 6:30 p.m. So, have that as a sort of a save the date. I don't know how you sign up to take part in it, but I'll get that out to you. But I'll just repeat it. It's Wednesday, November the 17th at 6:30 p.m. And that's it. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Bill?
Nope, nothing.
Okay. You know what? I was going to mention this in the board chair report and then I crossed it out because Sandy started to steal my thunder, but I guess we should at least get nods. Our December board meetings currently would be Tuesday, December 14th and Tuesday, December 28th. Would anyone object to taking a winter break and not having the second meeting in that week between Christmas and New Year's?
No.
All right, we will strike that one from the schedule then.
Okay.
Okay, I didn't miss anyone, right? All right, well, thank you very much, everyone. We are adjourned.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Good night. Bye-bye.